Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video I'm going to give some feedback on Sherzod's speaking test. Remember, if you'd like your own speaking test with feedback or a writing check, be sure to subscribe to the channel and join my Facebook group, Expert Examiner IELTS, my Telegram group, Expert Examiner, or check out my website for paid speaking tests and writing checks, expertexaminer.com. Anyway, let's get into the speaking test. Good afternoon. My name is Glyn. Would you tell me your full name, please?
Yeah, Sherzod IELTS.
And what should I call you?
You can call me Sherzod.
Finally, a candidate just tells me their name when I ask them their name. Cool. Remember, this part of the test isn't tested, so it's just an identity check. So keep it short. Cool. Okay, thank you, Sherzod. Now, in this first part of the test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. Do you work or do you study?
Well, currently I'm doing both of them
Well, I like both of them. They're very nice.
because I'm studying online for my university degree and I am working as a teacher.
Cool, nice, simple development, very natural. And how long have you been working as a teacher?
Actually, I've been working as a teacher for 7 years now. Because while I was studying in China,
So I've been working, nice present perfect continuous.
also taught some kids, kindergarten kids. And that was part-time job.
I don't know if it's really relevant to say, and that was a part-time job, but okay, it's fine. And what do you like most about your job?
Well, the thing that I like most about my job is
Nice. The thing that I like most about my job, I really like those cleft sentences. We teach them at C1, actually, cleft sentences. They're not really taught. A little bit of clefting in B2, but usually at C1, what I like most or the thing I like most about is very nice, very nice, very nice.
is that it's a very rewarding and
It's very rewarding. It sounds like it's a very rewarding, no? Did he say it's a very rewarding or it's very rewarding? Was there an article there?
Well, the thing that I like most about my job is that it's a very rewarding.
I don't know. It's a very rewarding. It might just be just that aspiration after the It's very rewarding.
And it gives me personal fulfillment to see my students grow every day.
Okay, that's nice, right? It's rewarding, and then linking to the idea, it gives me personal fulfillment to see my students progressing or something every day. Cool. The language feels a little bit academic. It doesn't feel like, everyday normal English. It feels, like job interview type of language, but still fine.
And yeah, and also getting to communicate with a lot of people, it broadens my mind as well.
Okay, that's a little bit undeveloped, right? Communicating with other people broadens my mind. Okay, if you're going to make that point, and I don't think you need to. I think you've already made the point that it's rewarding. But if you make the point that it broadens your mind, you might want to explain how. But okay, broadens my mind. It feels like it's a little bit buzzwordy. I mean, in the IELTS, things like it broadens my mind, it enhances my knowledge, it helps me to relieve stress. These are bits of language that, examiners hear all the time, but broadens my mind here. It's, the correct expression in context, so fine. Just a bit more explanation might be useful. And do you think you'll continue working as a teacher in the future?
Well, I'm not really sure about that. Maybe I might have a change.
Lovely intonation, right? Lovely pronunciation. I'm not really sure about that. It sounds American, really like chista American.
Change of career at the age of 30 or 35 when I cannot put up with the stress that I deal with my job.
Just stumbles over his words again, and just the put up with. Let's see.
When I cannot put up with the stress that I
put up with these, so it's not, the pronunciation is great. It's really clear. The phonology, the individual sounds are great, but maybe just not absolutely perfect with intonation and connected speech. Just listen again.
When I cannot put up with the stress that I deal with my job now.
Now let's talk about having. It is stressful being a teacher sometimes. It's more stressful being a YouTuber, but it can be very stressful being a teacher because, if you're a good teacher, you put all of your heart and your soul into your job. And, teaching English is your life, but for your students, it's like 1% of their life, and they just mostly don't care. They don't do the homework. They don't remember what you did in the last class. Yeah, sometimes it's not an easy profession. Breakfast. What do you usually have for breakfast?
Well, I usually skip breakfast
Cool. I like this skip breakfast. Very natural collocation here.
just because I have to.
But then we get a bit of a breakdown. And I don't know if it's connected, but I often notice that candidates, when they use like really, really good language, the candidates who are like, I don't know, band 7ish, like low C1, they can use this really good language. And I haven't made a judgment yet about Sherzod's speaking level. Just making that point that very often those C1s and high B2s, they can often use like really good bits of language, but then immediately after they break down, almost like, and I don't think this is true for Sherzod, but with many candidates, you see them use a great bit of language and then immediately break down. And it's like they're celebrating, oh, I've just used a great bit of language. And it's like their brain is thinking like, oh, that was so nice. I skip breakfast, that then they forget to follow up. Again, I'm not saying that that's what's happening to Sherzod for sure. I can't say it after just one thing, but I do notice it a lot with candidates, especially like the 6.5s. They use some beautiful bit of language and then break down immediately. And just watch it here. Having breakfast. What do you usually have for breakfast?
Well, I usually skip breakfast just because I
See, I usually skip breakfast just because and then like the idea is lost, and that often happens because the brain is thinking too hard about the language and it's less readily accessible. And when your brain has to think about language, it can't at the same time think about ideas, or it's difficult to do it.
I have to get to my job, early in the morning at 7 o'clock. But if I get up earlier than that, I usually.
If I get up earlier than that. So just there is really good intonation in there in places, really good, but then there are also some parts which just feel a little bit robotic.
Because I have to get to my job, early in the morning at 7 o'clock. But if I get up earlier than that, I usually have breakfast, and it's just, butter, a slice of bread.
Yeah, with some words in English, right? Knife and fork. We don't say fork and knife. We usually say knife and fork. Salt and pepper, not pepper and salt. And the same thing with bread and butter. So it sounds strange to have some butter and a slice of bread. Naturally, we'd say a slice of bread and some butter.
And a hot tea.
And a hot tea. Using with tea is very contentious. Some people say it's absolutely fine. A tea, a coffee. Some people say, no, it's horrible. You shouldn't use it. For me, a tea is fine. I hear it a lot. And so, fine. And have you ever had breakfast at a cafe or restaurant?
Yeah, it sometimes
Now, notice this is a question, have you ever, right? So why does this question exist in the IELTS test? Well, because the examiner is thinking, well, we want to have a range of time. We want to have mostly present time, but also we want to throw in a bit of past time. Have you ever in the past? Present perfect tense talks about the past. Have you ever had breakfast in a restaurant? So it talks about the past, but the candidate's answer is... And have you ever had breakfast at a cafe or restaurant?
Yeah, it sometimes happens.
It sometimes happens talking about the present. So, sometimes we do answer in this way, but it's not fully coherent, or it doesn't fully cohere to the question, right? Have you ever in the past, have you ever played football? Yeah, I play football quite often. It's not quite the answer we're looking for.
Especially when I go on business trips to different cities, in particular Tashkent, because I usually stay in a hotel, and early in the morning I need to have breakfast. So I find I get a quick breakfast in.
So a little bit of hesitation, a little bit of self-correction.
A cafe, nearby cafe.
So candidate talks about, the situation in which he usually has breakfast in a cafe, when he usually goes on a business trip in general. But the question is, have you ever in the past? Now let's talk about history. Did you like learning about history when you were at school?
Yes, I I really enjoyed learning about the history of my country and also international history as well, because we were lucky enough to have the
Love this. We were lucky enough to have. Very nice.
the most qualified history teacher, the best history teacher in our region. And
Our. There's no v sound there. I hear a little v. Do you hear a v?
you're the best history teacher in our region.
I hear our region, but it should be our. Sometimes, quite often, candidates from Uzbekistan mix up their v and the w. So in words like our, it sounds like ava, but then in words like over, it sounds like over. Yeah.
And she used it to deliver
Use it to, you can hear it right, use it to. This ed ending is the other big problem for many candidates from Uzbekistan. Used to. I used to study English 3 times a week. I used to do this. We used to learn history. She used to tell us stories. Used to, not use it to.
you're the best history teacher in our region. And she used it to deliver the things that happened in the past in a story form. So
Love the development in a story form. Beautiful, very clear, easy to understand ideas.
we would just listen to her stories and learn so many things.
I think he used we would just listen, which is really good for past. So yeah, grammar. The grammar is really, really strong. And what parts of history did you learn about in your history classes?
Well, actually, our curriculum had two history subjects. The first one is the history of Uzbekistan, and the second one is the history of the world. As
Cool again, very easy, right? Very logical. We had two. The first one was ba, the other one was ba. This is really, really good, logical speaking, very easy to follow.
for the former, when it comes to the history of Uzbekistan, we learned about, famous, well-known
I don't like this though, famous, well known. And I've mentioned this many times on my channel. Candidates who are approaching, and again, I'm not saying Sherzod is definitely one of these, but candidates that approach IELTS speaking as a test, as like a test that you can hack, always do or generally do worse than candidates who just try to answer questions in a normal, natural way. It's very famous, really well known. It's like those two things are synonyms. Why would you? How is your tea? Oh, the tea is very tasty and it's delicious. Okay. Tell me about your hometown. Oh, my hometown is very small and it's tiny. It's like, why do we need those two synonyms? People don't speak like that. That's not a natural use of vocab.
figures in the history of our country.
And I think he said figures instead of figures. Was that? Am I
The
right?
history of Uzbekistan. We learned about, famous, well-known figures in the
Famous, well known. Again, famous, well known. We don't need, but figures. It should be figures with a g. I know in English sometimes a g is a j and sometimes it's a g. But yeah, figures, not figures. But also maybe a bit of detail. It's not enough to say famous, well-known figures. Which figures? What time in history? What events in history? That might be useful information.
history of our country, and we learned how our country
Again, we get that have instead of how. Have. So the w and v is becoming noticeable.
developed over time.
And we get developed. So candidate has that ed problem too. Get use it to and develop it.
And we learned how our country developed over time.
We learned have our country developed over time. We learned have, not have, but how. And it should be how our. We learned how our country developed over time. Developed over. That's how we connect the speech here. Develop over. And even that p can disappear. Developed over. How it developed over time, not developed. Let's keep going. And which part of your country's history do you find the most interesting? So, this should be, are we talking about 15th century, 16th century, 17th century? We're talking about the Middle Ages? Are we talking about ancient history? We're talking about recent history?
Well, I think it is Samarkand and Bukhara because
So just listing the towns, okay, but which part of history, which period in history?
they are the most historical cities in my country, and
Okay, they're historical, but which parts of history? Was there some wars, some battles, some invasions, some revolutions, something like this?
during the 15th and 16th century,
Okay, cool. We get a period.
they were the main, how can I say? They were located on Silk Road.
The Silk Road, but okay.
So a lot of people from other countries and traders, they visited that part and they shared their knowledge, and so many great revolutions and inventions
Cool. Now we're getting topic specific vocab. Very nice.
were made in that part of my country.
Again, it sounds like were made instead of were made. So the were, now I can say that is a systematic pronunciation problem.
Great.
And would you like to learn about any other country's history in the future?
Yeah. Well, I would really want to learn about the history.
So would want to is a strange vocab choice. Would want to, that's not what we say. I would like to, yes. I want to, yes. I would want to, no.
Of China, because that's a country where I studied for 3 years, and I am very interested in Chinese culture. They have different traditions, and I wonder how the people in ancient times, live it.
Lived, not livid, but yeah, I agree with you. Chinese history is something I'd love to explore and find out more about too. I'm sure there's lots of amazing stuff to discover. But yeah, lived, not livid. All right, thank you. Okay, so that's the end of part one, some thoughts. So first thing to notice, candidate's very comfortable speaking English. I really, really like the way that he develops his ideas. It's very easy to follow. One or two questions, maybe just slightly off topic, like have you ever eaten or had breakfast at a cafe? Yes, I usually do it when I blah, blah, blah. But I wouldn't say that really pushes him off topic. It's just, not absolutely perfect coherence. Fluency is good. There are some kind of minor hesitations. They certainly don't lead to a loss of coherence, but I'll need to make the decision later about whether it's like very occasional hesitation or some hesitation. And very occasional hesitation is band 8, and some hesitation and reformulation and self-correction is band 7. And it feels unfair because right now his development of his ideas is really, really good, but it's looking, just according to IELTS' strict band descriptors, 7 is probably... we'll see. We'll see at the end. I won't say anything yet. Grammar, very, very solid. A couple of possible small mistakes with articles, like Silk Road instead of the Silk Road. It is a rewarding instead of it's rewarding. Don't know about if that was really a grammar mistake or not. Vocab choice, again, vocab is very, very good, but some odd things like would want to is a bit strange, and, famous, well-known. It's like, don't stack those synonyms. You don't need to. Just pick famous or well-known. Don't try to use both. But in general, vocab is strong, sufficient, certainly, to deal with the topic so far. Pronunciation, we have two systematic mistakes. One of them is the w versus v, and the other one is the ed ending. Very noticeable. I think I can say immediately it's probably going to be band 7 for pronunciation. Let's keep going. Now, in the topic on my screen, I'd like you to describe so candidate needs to talk about an activity that he's done that made him feel very tired. Now notice that's past, right? Made you feel very tired. And you should say when this happened, past, what the activity was, past, why you did this, past, explain why it was so tiring, past. It's narrative, it's a story, it's a chance for you to exploit narrative tenses, reported speech, future in the past. And also, because it's a story, you can use lots of adverbs, lots of sequences. We'll see how the candidate does. Probably there. And I will let you know when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Yes, of course. Well, back in
Yeah, this yes, of course you don't need it. I know it sounds, it's just a tiny thing, but candidates probably lose 3 or 4 seconds saying that yes, of course. When the examiner says, "Can you speak now? Can you start speaking now, please?" This isn't like a question. It's not like the examiner's like just curious. Oh, I was just wondering. Like, do you think it's possible for you to? No, no. It's your go sign. It's like go, and then just tell your story. So this yes, of course, at the beginning, you don't need it. Remove it. It's only minor, and I will let you know when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Yes, of course. Well, back in 2020, I had to come back from my uh, from China because of the coronavirus pandemic, and I had to continue my
Of course, we get some past simple had to with modal, semi-modal had to. Cool.
lessons online there. So we used to have lessons three
Again, we use it to.
times a week. So the other 3 days I was totally free, sometimes helping my parents with
I was free, sometimes helping my parents, really good use of participle.
housework, but most of the time, yeah, I had nothing to do. So
Cool, had nothing to do with very, very. That's the type of vocab I really like. I don't like the hustle and bustle of the city. I really like this. I had nothing to do. It's so nice. It's so natural.
a lot of my friends during that coronavirus pandemic, they gave up their jobs or they got hired from their jobs. They
Now, I had a discussion with the candidate after this where I said, like, some of the vocab choices seem a little bit strange. Like you said, your friends got hired from their job, and I think you mean they got fired. And the candidate was very strong about this, very insistent that, like, no, I said got fired, not got hired. And, my response is always, well, I could be wrong, but we have it recorded. You tell me, does it sound like he's saying got fired or got hired?
So a lot of my friends during that coronavirus pandemic, they gave up their jobs or they got hired from their jobs. So a lot of my friends during that coronavirus pandemic, they gave up their jobs or they got hired from their
It's got hired, right? You've said got hired. Now, that might be a phonological problem, but the examiner here's got hired. And so, regardless of what you meant to say, we will treat that not as a pronunciation mistake. I would treat that as a vocab mistake, just a slip. Got hired instead of got fired. They gave up their jobs is very nice. They got hired. And it does create just a small strain on the listener, right? Sometimes you hear like minor incorrect word choices and you don't worry about it. Like I would want to go to Spain. It's like, okay, we don't really say I would want to, we say I would like to or I want to but not would want to. But I understand exactly what you mean, and it doesn't cause my brain to say, huh? But when you say, oh, a lot of my friends they gave up their job and they got hired from their job, it's like, they got probably he means got fired. So there is a bit of strain there, a little bit of problem with that incorrect word choice.
jobs, they were free. And we decided to go on forest trekking with
So decided to go on forest trekking is a bit strange. We decided to go forest trekking. Fine.
my friends, in the next village, which is located about 20 miles away, because there is a vast forest there.
A vast forest. Again, you hear that problem with v and w. Vast. It should be vast.
So, but we decided not to take our
Cool. Negative infinitive. We decided not to. Very good.
phones or any gadgets with us because we wanted to spend a weekend without technology, because all of us admired that we were spending too much time.
And we had a debate over this one too, and I was persistent on this, that the candidate said we admired instead of we admitted, right? And the candidate wasn't 100% sure. And I was like, no, 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 you said admired. I don't know about hired, fired, but admired I definitely heard. And you can hear it again. He should say admitted.
But we decided not to take our phones or any gadgets with us because we wanted to spend a weekend without technology, because all of us admired that we were spending too much time.
All of us admired that. All of us admitted that we were spending too much time. So really good with the sequence of tenses, really good with past continuous. Grammar is very, very strong, but we've had quite a few inappropriate word choices now. Probably I can say, well, for a band 8, the range of vocab is great, but the accuracy, the precision of the vocab isn't always there. And so probably, certainly not lower than a 7, but I don't think I can give an 8 for vocab.
In front of the screen, and some of us even got addicted to that. So without our technology, without our phones,
feels now a little bit like the candidate is just rushing a little bit.
All of us admired that we were spending too much time in front of the screen.
And you can kind of see that because when people speak a lot and they're speaking a lot and they're trying to speak very quickly, they need to take a breath in order to keep speaking because they're trying to get as much information out there as possible, and they don't have time to take a breath because they need to say as much as possible. And I'm exaggerating this, of course. I'm making it seem like a bigger problem than it is, but I think you can notice it in the candidate that he's rushing, and he's rushing so much that he forgets to breathe and he needs to take a breath.
All of us admired that we were spending too much time in front of the screen, and some of us...
Do you see the breathing? I hope you can hear it. Just notice one more time.
But we decided not to take our phones or any gadgets with us because we wanted to spend a weekend without technology, because all of us admired that we were spending too much time in front of the screen.
You can kind of see it, right? Or is it just me?
And some of us even got addicted to that. So without our technology, without our phones, informing our parents, we just left our city and we just got into the forest.
Sorry about that.
But
so also when you speak really quickly, it can be difficult. It can make it difficult to stay on track, to follow your ideas.
I believe we didn't get prepared for the for this.
Candidate says prepared, should be prepared.
Activity really well, because we only got...
Candidate says well, and it should be well. So I'm not going to mention any more of those mistakes now. We've seen enough evidence, right? There are systematic problems with w and v, and also a systematic problem with this ed ending.
We had only taken
cool, past perfect,
very little water, and in the middle of the forest we found out that we lost our ways, and we
found out that we had lost our way, not our ways.
Had been already walking for more than 15.
Past perfect continuous. Probably we had been walking for how long already is probably the more natural position of already, but we had been walking already for, it's okay. Or even we had already been walking for, that's also another natural position of already. So the candidate's position of already isn't the most natural, but it's okay.
Hours. And eventually night came, and
eventually good, nice little signpost language. Candidate's doing, good job of exploiting the language that we use in narratives. I will say he's doing a really good job of it. All of those like past tenses, really fantastic range of tenses there, and some nice sequencing language.
We were really exhausted, and we
get that strong adjective, really exhausted, and the stress timing here is really good. We were really exhausted. That is appropriate stress timing.
Really didn't know what to do, but fortunately, there was...
Again, adverb of comment. Use of adverbs, great here.
A guy who works as who works as a lumberjack in the...
Guy who worked. Should be worked. Past.
Forest. He saw us.
Thank you. Okay, that's my first thank you. Now, when the examiner says thank you at the end of part 2, this is not a sign that you should rush and finish the rest of your story. When the examiner says thank you, and I know maybe some people find it uncomfortable, this is your time to stop talking. And I will repeat it one more time. If you go over 2 minutes, the examiner will say thank you. When the examiner says thank you, that is your signal to stop talking. It is not your signal to keep talking, but keep talking more quickly. Watch what happens here.
Who works as a lumberjack in that forest? He saw us, and he knew that we were struggling a lot. So he decided to help us.
Thank you. I had to say thank you 4 times. Candidate was just like, no, I'm going to finish my story. And again, it's only a small thing, but trust me when I say that sometimes in many cases, right, candidates are borderline. We don't know. Oh, fluency and coherence, it could be 6, it could be 7. Well, not this candidate, but, pronunciation, oh, it could be 8, it could be 9, it could be 5, it could be 6, it could be 7, it could be 8. Many of the criteria are borderline because we have 14 minutes or 11 to 14 minutes to make this judgment. The criteria, it's a guide. It's supposed to help us reach those decisions. But so many candidates are borderline. I would say when I'm examining, I would say like in about 1/3 of cases, 33% of cases, there's something very borderline, and it's like, I don't know which one to give. Now, generally, as an examiner, I'm a dove, right? If in doubt, I go with a higher mark. Should I give them a 5 or a 6? Well, I don't know. I'll go with a 6. That's how I approach it, because I'm a language learner too. I understand it's difficult and people get nervous, and sometimes you can feel like they do have that level. They're just a bit nervous or something. However, there are certainly some examiners who, when you don't listen to the instructions, and when you're not quiet after the examiner says thank you, thank you, thank you. I am not like that, but there are certainly some examiners that will think, you know what, that guy didn't stop talking when I said thank you. That's so rude. Like, it's a test. Whoa, how dare he? And so, if you're in between the 5 and the 6, you think, well, I'm going to go with a 5. So yeah, there is a psychological aspect to this. We don't, rule number 1 in life is don't do anything that might affect decision makers that you have hopes for, right? Like if you're applying for a visa to go to a country, when you're in the visa office, don't annoy the woman who's filling out the application form for you. Don't annoy her, because she can do, she shouldn't, but she has the potential to do things that you might not like. Same thing if you're making a complaint to a police officer. Don't annoy the police officer because they won't take your complaint seriously. And the same thing with IELTS. Now, I spoke to Sherzod before and after the test. He's a lovely guy. I really like him. Really cool guy, really enthusiastic about teaching. I'm not, it doesn't matter to me if he keeps talking or not. But just as a safe piece of advice, and again, I don't like taking risks, once the examiner says thank you, it's time to stop talking. Anyway, I've made the point. I've made the point. I've made the point. All right, so you've been talking about this activity that made you feel tired. Let's talk about being tired in more detail now. Do you agree that people are generally more tired nowadays than people in the past were? So you have an opportunity to use comparative language. Yes, no, why?
Yeah, I do believe that this is the case.
Cool, love that this is the case. Very nice.
Because a lot of people nowadays are working too much.
Good, nice stress on two. Very nice.
Because they set a lot of goals for themselves.
Themselves. Candidate seems to have problems with consonant clusters, that he can't add like the soft d or the soft z themselves after other consonant sounds. So v, z, vz, vz seems difficult. Candidate says live is, friend is, even themselves is, and it should be themselves. So there is a clear limitation. Okay, they set goals for themselves. Feels a little bit odd, but okay.
And they, overwork. This makes them not only tired, but also
tired. In American English, tired.
Very stressed. And the only reason behind this is the materialistic nature of people, I think.
Okay, I wouldn't say we're off topic, but the idea has certainly got a little bit too complex for me.
They are becoming more and more materialistic.
How does being more materialistic make people more tired?
Yes, of course,
The question is how, but maybe the candidate missed it. How does being more materialistic make people tired?
because when they become materialistic, they want to achieve so many things in their lives.
That's not what being materialistic is. It's not that you want to achieve so many things, it's that you want to own and have so many things.
So the only way to achieve something great, something big in your life is to, earn a lot of money, to earn a fortune, maybe.
I don't know if that's true.
So in order to earn a lot,
I don't even know if materialists. I mean, maybe materialists do believe that, wealth is the key to happiness because you can keep buying things.
a lot of money, they just work overtime and they get employed, right?
And to be honest, I think most people of a very materialistic nature are not the hardworking people.
In different places. So eventually, consequently, this leads to exhaustion, maybe.
Okay, nice use of exhaustion, nice use of the suffix there, good word building. What advice would you give to someone who complains that they always feel tired?
Well, I think they have to make several changes to their daily routine.
Cool, nice setup. So, several changes to the daily routine, for example.
Uh, I think 10 or 15 minutes of exercise will do really will impact on their level of happiness and on increase their mood and will prevent them from feeling tired.
Yeah, again, it's a little bit much, isn't it?
Increase their mood and
Increase their mood. We only want to focus on, how it can stop them from feeling tired. But yeah, maybe it's okay. I think helps them to increase their mood. Okay.
will prevent them from feeling tired.
I would focus more on energy. I would say something like, when you do exercise, you're full of energy. Afterwards, you feel great. Contrary to what other people are saying, that's the benefit of exercise is that it maybe increases your blood flow and that keeps you more active or alert during the day. So not really, I don't see how really increasing your mood is necessarily connected to not being tired.
And I would really recommend that they should do.
Well, I would recommend that they should. Nice use of the subjunctive here. Don't know how natural it is in a friendly conversation or discussion. I recommend that they should do, but okay, fine.
Something that enjoy, for example, spending quality time in the company of friends or family members, so they can achieve that, I think.
What do you think's worse, feeling physically tired or feeling mentally tired?
Yeah, for me, feeling mentally tired is much worse than being physically tired because
Much worse than doing something great. Grammar is really, really accurate.
when you are physically tired, you can just go to bed or you can just take a day off from your work and you can overcome it in no time. But when you are mentally tired, it not only affects your day, your work, your relationship with the people around you, and also it has a detrimental effect on your overall well-being.
Cool. So candidate likes this not only but also. I think candidate use not only but and also here. There is definitely a possible case to use inversion here. So just notice this sentence.
Tired, it not only affects your day.
It not only affects your day. Now, I'm thinking candidate is band 8 or band 9 with grammar, and I wouldn't, it's definitely not wrong to say it not only affects your day, but there's a beautiful bit of inversion in English. Not only does it affect your day, but also, not only does it affect. Now, I'm sure Sherzod, as an English teacher, knows about this rule with inversion. I just don't know how much he's internalized it. He says it not only affects your mood, which is fine, but we can also say not only does it affect your mood, and that would show a little bit, even more variety.
Your work, your relationship with the people around you, and also it has a detrimental effect on your overall well-being, I think. So
Okay, it has a detrimental effect on your overall well-being. Feels, slightly academic, slightly heightened, but it's okay. It's contextually not bad.
People should avoid being mentally tired.
People should avoid being mentally tired. Yeah, it's kind of a circular argument. But being physically tired also has a detrimental effect on a person's well-being, doesn't it?
But you
So I like to dig into things. Whenever I hear candidates using like heightened language, I always think like, oh, do you really? Are you just using this because it's an IELTS test, or is this really part of your answer? And so that's usually the place where I dig in.
can, overcome, you can tackle this. You can eliminate that physical tiredness,
Cool, overcome, eliminate, nice, tackle, very good.
By some ways.
Okay, in some ways. Let's talk about sleeping patterns now. What are some good things to do before going to bed?
There are several things you can do to make you, sleep better. For example, you can turn off your gadgets because, as we know, they emit a lot of,
So pronunciation again, still very, very clear, but it does lack a little bit of intonation.
Green light, which prevents you from going to bed, right? Which decreases the amount of melatonin.
I don't know, a green light? Isn't it blue light? Isn't that the light that comes from screens?
Which prevents you from going to bed, right? Which decreases the amount of melatonin in your body.
Yeah, and that answer, if it's true, is absolutely fine. It decreases the amount of melatonin in your body. If it's true, it's fine. But remember, in the IELTS test, nobody expects you to be an expert on, human physiology and hormones and things like this. So, trying to find those overly scientific answers, if you know about it, fine. For me, a better answer is like, well, one thing I think you should do is like go to the toilet because, I know it happens to a lot of people. They wake up in the middle of the night and then they need to use the bathroom and then they go back to bed and they can't fall asleep again. So, make sure you don't drink too much water before you go to sleep. Make sure you use the bathroom. That could help. That's a non-expert answer, which is simple and easy to follow.
And secondly, not having your main meal in the evening also helps for you to sleep.
But not having your main meal in the evening, it doesn't really seem like a reasonable solution, right? Having your dinner early, that would be better. Have your dinner an hour or two early, or don't eat after 7 p.m. It sounds like the candidate is saying that we should skip dinner, which I don't think the candidate means.
Better, because when you have your main meal in the evening, right, it's like your stomach struggles to digest.
Or maybe he means that you should have your main meal like at lunchtime and then have like a smaller dinner. But that's stuff that I have to infer, and I really wish the candidate told me that.
Food, and it makes you feel very, how can I say?
So now we want to see if the candidate can paraphrase. Clearly, he wants to say something. He's lost the word, and skilled users of English will say, I've forgotten the word for it. But, it makes you, and then paraphrase. Can the candidate do this?
You may feel tired, something like that. Okay, not easily going to bed.
Okay, so an attempted paraphrase, but not wholly successful. Why is it a problem if people don't get enough sleep?
Well, when people don't get enough sleep, right, and the next day,
I like that intonation. When people don't get enough sleep, right? Nice.
They may not be as productive as they are, right?
Nice use of modality and nice comparative, as productive as
they normally are, and they cannot show their full potential at work. And when they do not get enough sleep, the next day they feel tired, of course, without any doubt. They feel exhausted.
Okay, it's kind of obvious, right? They feel tired, they feel exhausted, but why is it a problem if they feel tired or exhausted?
So, and it also affects their concentration level, I think.
Cool.
When you
agree.
Or when you don't get a good night's sleep, right?
Nice, get a good night's sleep. Very nice.
The next day you find it really hard to concentrate on your priorities.
Mm-hmm. And finally, how do you think people's sleeping habits might change in the future? So this invites the candidate to use future time constructions, predictive language.
Well, in the future, maybe we may
May is absolutely fine as a modal verb for predictions.
have some pills, right? We already have, I know that, but we
Okay, we already have. Forget about what we already have. Let's be future focused.
may have, advanced pills, advanced technology that can put us into sleep.
Put us to sleep, not put us into sleep. Put us to sleep.
In a very short amount of time, and people can also, record what they see in their dream, and maybe they can even, in the future, the technology.
They will even be able to is better than they can even. I know sometimes we use can to talk about the future, but not when we make predictions about the future. When we say, like, I can meet tomorrow, that's fine. But when we talk about the prediction of future abilities, in the future we can do something. In the future we will be able to do something.
Technology is booming nowadays. In the future, we may even.
And just finally, we're just losing a bit of coherence where it's like, okay, these pills help us to go to sleep, but what's the idea?
Time, and people can also, record what they see in their dream.
Okay, they'll be able to record what they see in their dreams, fine.
And maybe they can even, in the future, the technology is booming nowadays.
The technology is booming nowadays. Why is that relevant?
In the future, we may even be able to choose the dreams that we see.
Is that technology booming? The technology of dream manipulation? I don't think that specific technology is booming at the moment.
During sleep.
Okay, thank you. That is the end of the test. All right. So, the last question, just slightly odd, but we don't need to worry about that. Let's get into marks. So, I'm going to award, for fluency and coherence, I'm going to go with the 7, not the 8. And the reason for this, let's just take a look. I still have some marks on my criteria. Let's move those away. Let's just explain this clearly. So the candidate does have a lot of flashes of an 8, right? There are lots of stuff to like about his fluency. Notice this: topic development is coherent, appropriate, and relevant. Absolutely. The candidate's topic development is a real strength in this candidate, but then, fluent with only very occasional repetition or self-correction. Is it only very occasional? For me, no, it's not only very occasional, it's noticeable. Hesitation may occasionally be used to find words or grammar, but most will be content related. And I feel like there were enough cases in there where the hesitation seemed to be caused by a linguistic problem. And so, we go to the 7, able to keep going and readily produce long turns without noticeable effort. Yes, some hesitation, repetition, or self-correction may occur. And that's a better description, right? And you might think, well, the candidate has like more of 8 than 7. No, but the IELTS has these hard caps, and that's it. You have to meet all of the positive features of a band 8 to get a band 8. And if you have one of those positive features that don't meet it, then it goes to a band 7. So I do think the candidate is a very strong. Sorry about that. I do think the candidate is a very strong 7. Sometimes you see weak 7s, but I think this candidate is a strong 7. Yeah. So for that reason, because you might think, well, why didn't you give a higher mark? Hopefully that explains it. So 7. Your topic development is great. Generally, your ideas are clear and very well organized. Great stuff. The only issue is the amount of hesitation, or the amount of, I'm going to say, reformulation. Reformulation is when you reformulation is when you start speaking and then you go back to the beginning and then you want to start again, just like I did. That's reformulation. So that reformulation is probably, for me, just gives you that 7 instead of the 8. Lexical resource, I'm also going to go with 7. So you have a really, really nice range of vocab, but there are just too many instances where odd word choices become noticeable. Again, if we look at the band descriptors, I don't think nowadays most IELTS examiners really look closely at these band descriptors anymore, especially if you've been examining for a long time. But just to help you guys understand, band 8, skillful use, okay, fine. Readily, flexibly used to discuss all topics and convey precise meaning. Yeah, I think so. Skillful use of less common and idiomatic items. I think so, despite occasional inaccuracies in word choice. Yeah, it could be. It could be an 8. Let's have a look at 7. Resource flexibly used to discuss a variety of topics. Sure, some ability to use less common and idiomatic items. I think skillful use is a better description. But awareness of style and collocation is evident, though inappropriacies occur. Yeah. By some reasons instead of for some reasons, something like that. Effective use of paraphrase. Candidate's paraphrase was okay. And then we get this in 6. Vocabulary use may be inappropriate, but meaning is clear. Now, there were a couple of cases, right? Would want to. That's a case of like inappropriate vocab, but meaning is clear. We admired instead of we admitted. Meaning is kind of clear, but they got hired instead of they got fired. That does put some strain on the listener. So yeah, for me, that really is a really good range of vocab, but the precision isn't always there. Again, I think a strong 7 for vocab, for lexical resource. Grammatical range and accuracy, you might be surprised with this, but I'm going to award a 9 for this. So I didn't notice there were no systematic mistakes, but maybe a couple of minor slips. Apart from that, your grammar was incredibly accurate, and you showed off an incredible range. Maybe you missed that one chance to use inversion, but that for me isn't enough. I don't know what more people want from grammar. In part 2, you really exploited that like narrative language, which is quite rare from candidates. I do think you have enough in there for a 9. Pronunciation is quite an easy 7 to award, so it is easy to understand you. You have a decent phonological range. You show some good signs of intonation, but don't always sustain it. There are times when your speech just becomes a little bit mechanical. Okay, so that gives us a score of, if I am correct, 7777 is a band 7. 7778 is a band 7. 7779 is a band 7.5. Have I got that right? I think so. So, areas of improvement. Just don't talk about complexity of ideas. Let's forget about it. You have systematic errors with v sounds and ed endings. Fix it. Sometimes I think because your ideas are a little complex, your speech becomes slightly robotic. You have great phonology. You really do have really wonderful accent, but sometimes your speech becomes slightly robotic. And I don't know for sure but I would guess that if you tried simplifying your ideas a little bit and stop worrying about talking about how blue light affects our melatonin, you might find that your pronunciation actually becomes a bit better, that your intonation improves. You might find, I don't know. Anything I can say about vocab? Your range of vocab is great. Perhaps try to simplify a little. So we always know, right? Candidates who overuse difficult vocab tend to find more inappropriacies because they're always trying to use difficult vocab. My recommendation for you would be your range is enough for an 8 already. Maybe don't take so many risks with vocab. Don't try to, and I don't think it's obvious that you're forcing a lot of stuff in, but I love the stuff with like, I had nothing to do, or to get a good night's rest, or I often skip breakfast. That type of vocab is really, really good. And often, that's enough to push you towards an 8. But maybe try using a bit more simple language in some cases, and then just sprinkle in the nice bits of vocab. And I think, you could get a higher mark. So, fluency and coherence, definitely. I wouldn't be surprised if this candidate got an 8 in their speaking test. I don't think he's quite there for the 8.5 or for the 9s yet. Grammatically, he is there, but certainly a few things to work on. But a very strong candidate, 7.5, a very respectable score in that, right in the middle of that C1 zone. But definitely has the potential to get an 8.0. If the candidate took the IELTS test next week and got an 8.0, I wouldn't be surprised. If he got an 8.5, I would be like, that's a bit of a surprise, but not impossible. But for me, 7.5, possibly an 8. Very decent performance and, nice guy. I know some of his students watched his performance. So, if you are watching, students, be nice to your teacher. You have a very talented English speaker as your teacher. You should be very grateful. And when it's his birthday, you should buy him something nice. Anyway, so for me, a score of 7.5 overall. Strong performance, decent job, well done. What do you think of my marking? Am I too harsh? Am I too generous? Do you agree that it is a band 9 with grammar? And as I mentioned earlier, if you'd like your own free practice speaking test with feedback, I collect my candidates on my Telegram group and on my Facebook group. If you don't want to enter that crazy lottery system and you'd prefer to pay for a speaking test or a writing check, my full price list is on my website, expertexaminer.com. Links to everything are in the description. More videos coming soon. But for now, bye-bye.